All right, Eric Mangini's sitting back there watching this nonsense. Just utter nonsense.
I like your Atlanta pick.
You like what pick?
I like your Atlanta pick. I think that's good.
Yeah, see?
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, guy who's coached in the league.
You're not drinking.
So it is interesting, like the Justin Fields thing. So I said, the reason I took them, because I said Justin Fields against this Green Bay defense is going to look better than Jordan Love against the Bears defense since they got Montez Sweat. They got a real pass rush. And so when I pick games a lot of times, give me the best quarterback. You have to contextualize it. Green Bay's defense is a mess. They're going to move off their – it's just not playing well. So the Justin Fields component's fascinating. By Monday, if they beat Green Bay, you know this, Eric. You were coached in New York. The whole city's going to be bringing back. He beat the Packers. What do you make of the Justin Fields dynamic? Because he's played better. If he wins in Lambeau, I mean, Bears don't beat Green Bay. They haven't beaten Green Bay in like 10, 15 years, it feels like. Where are you on Justin Fields?
Well, I felt even last year when they had the number one pick, if they had a conviction on any of the quarterbacks, I thought they should have moved off of Justin Fields at that point. And he's done a lot of good things, but most of the good things come from when he's working with his legs as opposed to him really developing consistently as a passer. Now there's flashes. There's incredible flashes passing the ball. It's just not consistent. Now here they are again with the first overall pick. If there's a quarterback that they have a conviction with, they should go get him and move on from Justin. I thought, and you and I talked about this in August, I really thought if Justin Fields had made some progress last year coming into this season, the Bears loaded up on a bunch of offensive talent this offseason. I thought they were going to be significantly better than they ended up being, and they're getting a little bit hot here at the end, but it's been disappointing to me offensively where he is a year removed from the summer.
You know this, pressure affects locker rooms. And so the Baker Browns was pressurized, a lot of pressure. Deshaun Watson Browns, pressure. The Flacco Browns, he's like, I'm having a great time. I watch them. They are the loosest team in the league. House money, backup, fourth quarterback. Eric, I think it matters. I think you can feel tight in the NFL. You can feel it. Deshaun Watson, everybody was up. Is he hurt? Is he playing? I've never thought this in my life. I think I wouldn't be shocked if Cleveland ended up in the AFC Championship. Tell me what you live in Cleveland. What do you see from Flacco? What do you hear the Browns?
Same thing. Going into the season with Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson, I thought, and the defense and Jim Schwartz coming on board, I thought this team had a chance to win the division. And then they lose Nick Chubb, they lose Deshaun Watson. They're still finding ways to win. In comes Flacco, who absolutely is playing with house money, who didn't think he was going to get a chance to play. And it looks like an adult at quarterback. It looks like a guy who's got a lot of experience and a lot of poise and appreciation of this opportunity, taking advantage of it. Now, you look at his numbers, his touchdown percentage is the highest it's ever been in his career when he's played more than 5 games, which is what he's got with the Browns. And the flip side of that, though, is he is taking a lot more chances. And his interception rate is the highest it's been in his career as well. But Cleveland's used to quarterbacks throwing a lot of interceptions. They're used to having to overcome that adversity. They're not used to getting the upside that now Joe Flacco is bringing. And he puts a ton of pressure on defenses with the deep ball. His arm is incredible. And they could go into Baltimore and upset the Ravens.
Oh, absolutely.
They beat the Ravens in Baltimore with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
They're not intimidated. They're not intimidated by Baltimore. And now you've got Joe Flacco, who's played in that stadium for years, going back there with a chance to beat him. It's a little bit of a storybook.
Yeah, no, it is. There is something to be said when you're playing with house money and everybody's loose and fun. It's more fun to coach. It's more fun to practice. I could see Cleveland going to Baltimore, and everybody in Baltimore is all tensed up as the number 1 seed. And here comes Joe Flacco's throwing to his kids in the backyard during the week. Yeah.
And who's more comfortable than Joe Flacco playing in that stadium? I mean, he played there for years. It'd be like a home game for him.
So I defended Mike McCarthy yesterday. I said, take John Harbaugh's career and Mike McCarthy. Same winning percentage, Mike's got a couple more division titles. Both have a Super Bowl. I mean, if you go down the line, it's virtually the same. I would argue that Mike had to overcome Green Bay with no owner. They can't get free agents. And Dallas with a semi-meddling owner. Whereas Harbaugh's had, as you know, ownership's about half the bag. Baltimore's ownership is incredible. Top 5, 6 in the league. We would not consider, so here's the winning percentages, Harbaugh, McCarthy. They've won the same, playoffs the same, division time, same guy. We love one, we're brutal to the other. So if Mike McCarthy wins a singular playoff game, but lost at Detroit, lost at San Francisco, I'm not firing him. If Harbaugh gets to the AFC Championship and loses in overtime to Joe Flacco, I'm not firing him. I mean, I look at Mike McCarthy, I think, are we being unrealistic? This is his second team he's built up. Dallas was a bit of a mess when he took it over. 12 wins, 12 wins, 12 wins. At some point, are we being too harsh on McCarthy?
Well, the difference in these two organizations is expectations. And every year, Dallas builds up the expectations, and it comes from the players, but more importantly, it comes from ownership. They're always talking about how good the personnel is, how good the personnel is. So when you have that situation and you don't achieve at a high level, which is what Dallas is always saying they're going to, then it looks like a failure of coaching. Where Baltimore is totally different. They typically are under the radar. They're humble, if anything, and so you don't go in with the same expectations. So now you're judging based off of sort of self-inflicted, this world of self-inflicted expectations. And I think that's why Mike gets judged a lot more harshly. Now, Dallas is going to have to make a decision. What if they want Dan Quinn to stay? Dan Quinn's probably going to get an opportunity to become a head coach. And if it doesn't go well in the playoffs and they've got Dan Quinn in the building, is that a place where you might make a change in order to keep Dan and keep that defense intact? Yeah, it's these playoffs are going to be absolutely fascinating. So, we've talked about Lamar Jackson, and I've really defended him. I've said, listen, I don't care about numbers, influence. When I watch teams face him, I've seen them gash San Francisco, Miami, Seattle, Detroit. He's intimidating because Lamar can humiliate you. Trevor Lawrence can beat you. Dak can beat you. Cousins can beat you. Lamar can humiliate you. Even when people rush him, the Bosas, they don't go too hard too fast. It's like, okay, let's stay back. When I see pro athletes who are elite pay reverence to like Tyreek Hill's speed, or Lamar's athletic ability. What you're seeing is, it's like Kobe and MJ. Mike didn't beat you. He would humble you. I think he's a go-away. I'm not an awards guy. I think what Lamar creates is this is why athletes love him. They face him. They get how good he is because they've been humiliated by him. And I think a lot of people, Eric, struggle because he doesn't have the most this or the most that. If you were facing him, what do you do with Lamar? How do you face him? Lamar is like a human cheat code, and you're right. He has such a unique set of talents that you have to play him so differently than you have to play everybody else. And your defensive line, who's used to rushing traditional passers, are guys with some escapability, but nowhere near the level of escapability. They've got to change the way that they play. The box that you've got to put an extra player down the box because he's such a big threat as a runner, which means you're isolated outside. And my frustration with Lamar has always been in the sense of, is it sustainable? How long can he play with this style? Because the running quarterbacks, and Lamar's had a lot of troubles here recently with injuries, and thankfully he's healthy going into the playoffs. How long is this sustainable? But in a one-game, one-off type of situation like the playoffs are, it's such a different package, and trying to keep him in the pocket and not let him kill you with his feet takes so much time and energy. You're not able to do a lot of other stuff to stop their other core players. All right, rest or rust? Would you sit Trent Williams for 2 weeks? If you have a number one seed, and I mean, Baltimore and San Francisco, feels like they're always like banged up at certain positions, right? Because they're physical teams. Are you a rest or it creates too much rust? What is your feeling on that? I struggle with this. I think of the 2007 Giants when they played that last week in the season against New England and ended up being a shootout, and New England wins, but then they face New England again in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl, and they beat them, and they're like road warriors, and they're hardened and grizzled, and that happens. And then you've got other examples where team wins the first seed, they're clearly the favorites, they rest a bunch of people, and they come out and they're no good. It's a hard balance because you're going to be sick if one of your stars gets hurt in a meaningless game. You're going to be absolutely sick. But on the flip side of that, when you give guys so much time off, and it's not their fault, you know how it is coming back from a long vacation. You've got to get back into the rhythm. Yeah. I think that the best approach, and an approach we often took in New England, is we told the guys they were going to play. So we went out and we practiced that week like all the starters were going to start, and we got that good full week of practice, and then we pulled them off and didn't play them. But you still got that full week of practice going to the game, so you didn't lose that component of it. And you hear Kyle Shanahan talking about that. It's a long time to go without practicing. So maybe it's not fair in the sense that you're not telling the guys up front, but it was a really smart way to get the work in that you needed without taking the risk that you take with playing them in the game.
I would keep, finally, Belichick if, and I don't think he's capable of this, if he could work with a young personnel person and a young offensive coordinator. But Bill can be territorial. He can be intimidating, at times abrasive. He doesn't necessarily work, even Brady, work well with others. You work under Bill. So my take is you got to move on. He's not Andy Reid. Andy can work with Brett Veach. He can work with Mahomes. Andy's different. LaFleur, I've heard like that. You can work well with some people. Other people you work under. And I think it's time for Bill. I don't think you can bring somebody in and share duties. I think he's too intimidating. What do you think?
Yeah, where would you get that guy, and who would make the decision? So would Robert and Jonathan Kraft go out and say, this is a better personnel guy than you, Bill? So those two guys are going to go tell Bill that this personnel guy is better than him. And now Bill may be willing to make concessions in order to stay in New England. He told me a long time ago, look, if you're not happy with the owner, go buy your own team. And that's the reality of it. If Bill wants to stay, and it's important to him to stay, he may be willing to make some concessions. And he's got two of his kids there. It gives him a chance to get this thing back on track. But it's going to have to be a collaborative effort between him and ownership to find that person from a personnel perspective. Now, will he accept, we're going to put this guy over you no matter what, and either you eat it or you're out? I don't think he's going to accept that. I think at that point, then it's just going to be a nasty divorce.
Yeah. All right. Have a great weekend. Appreciate you backing me on my dubious Falcons pick. I've never won an Atlanta bet in my life.
I know. We both backed him a long time.
Yep. Good seeing you, Coach. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.